Long before written history began, great civilizations rose from the dust, only to vanish, leaving behind cryptic ruins, undeciphered symbols, and more questions than answers. In this episode, we journey across continents and millennia to explore the world's most mysterious ancient civilizations. From coastal architects who raised massive platforms, to urban planners whose undeciphered scripts guard their secrets, to island builders whose stone towers still stand as silent sentinels. Stick around, because number 10 will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about our ancient roots. Our first stop takes us to the windswept coasts of ancient Peru. Imagine a string of coastal settlements rising along a barren stretch of Peru's Pacific shore around 3000 BCE, where monumental stone platforms and sunken circular plazas appear long before the rise of Egypt's pyramids or Mesopotamia's ziggurats. The enigmatic Norte Chico civilization, or Caral-Supe, emerged as one of the earliest complex societies in the Americas, predating other Old World civilizations. Despite nearly a century of study, many fundamental questions about its origins, economy, social organization, and belief systems remain unanswered. At the core of the mystery is its antiquity and distinctive features. Radiocarbon dating places Carroll's urban center flourishing between roughly 3000 and 1800 BCE, making it contemporary with early Old World civilizations but developing independently. Archaeologists have uncovered at least 6 major sites, each marked by massive platforms, stairways, and often a circular amphitheater plaza. Yet, there is a striking absence of pottery and visible signs of intensive agriculture in quantities comparable to Old World Neolithic states. How did they sustain large populations and mobilize labor for monumental construction? One prevailing theory emphasizes a maritime-based economy provided reliable protein year-round. Archaeological remains at coastal sites include fish bones, shell middens, and remains of nets or fishing implements, suggesting complex fishing technologies. Inland, they may have cultivated cotton and some crops via irrigation from nearby river valleys. The nature of leadership and ritual life is also obscure. Monumental architecture implies coordinated labor under some authority or communal ritual imperative. Sunken circular plazas may have hosted ceremonies involving music, dance, or feasting, but no written records exist. Some researchers propose that religious ideology centered on mountain or water worship unified dispersed communities, guiding construction of shared ceremonial centers. Yet without inscriptions or iconography expressing beliefs, we rely on architectural layouts and comparisons with later Andean practices to infer ritual functions. Technologically, Norte Chico builders quarried and shaped local stones, laying foundations that have endured millennia of seismic activity. The precision with which large platforms were raised demonstrates sophisticated planning and knowledge of engineering principles. Yet, no surviving tools or workshops detail their construction methods, and no writing system appears. The society left no decipherable script. How they transmitted technical knowledge across generations remains a matter of speculation. As the civilization waned around 1800 BCE, perhaps due to climatic shifts affecting river flows or changes in marine ecosystems, the monumental centers were gradually abandoned. Subsequent Andean cultures built atop or nearby these ruins, but much of Norte Chico's original context was lost or repurposed. Modern excavations continue to refine chronology through advanced dating techniques. Geophysical surveys reveal buried structures, and paleoenvironmental studies probe how changing sea levels or river dynamics influenced settlement. Yet, each discovery often raises new puzzles. Ultimately, the Norte Chico civilization endures as a testament to human ingenuity in a challenging environment. Its monuments stand as silent witnesses to a world that organized large-scale labor, ritual, and exchange without many hallmarks of Old World states. Although we understand broad outlines of maritime reliance, architectural phases, and possible ritual functions, the deeper motives, beliefs, and internal dynamics of these early Andean builders remain shrouded. If this ancient coastal enigma captured your imagination, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. In our next episode, we'll journey to the banks of the Indus River to confront civilization number 2, the Indus Valley Civilization. Imagine walking through a meticulously planned city more than 4,500 years ago, where broad, straight streets intersect at right angles, uniform baked brick houses line the lanes, and large public baths suggest ritual or communal cleansing, all without a deciphered script or clear evidence of ruling dynasties. The civilization I'm describing is the Indus Valley, or Harappan Civilization, which flourished from roughly 2600 to 1900 BCE, across what is now Pakistan and northwest India. Despite extensive excavations at major sites like Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, and others, fundamental questions about its social organization, political authority, religious beliefs, and the causes of its decline remain tantalizingly unresolved. At its core lies the urban planning. City grids laid out with remarkable regularity, drainage systems that channeled wastewater away from dwellings, and standardized brick sizes across hundreds of kilometers, indicating some level of shared norms or centralized coordination. Yet, no palaces or grand monuments proclaiming kingship have been found. No tombs or burial complexes clearly mark elite lineages. Instead, material culture appears relatively uniform, suggesting egalitarianism or distributed authority rather than centralized monarchy. How did decisions get made, and by whom? We lack inscriptions naming rulers or institutional records, as the Indus script remains undeciphered despite thousands of inscribed seals and tablets. Without a readable script, direct insight into governance, religious texts, or laws eludes us. Trade networks further deepen the enigma. The Harappans likely engaged in long-distance exchange. Seals and beads traveled to Mesopotamia and Oman, and goods such as metals and possibly timber were exchanged for goods within the Indus region. Seals with pictographic inscriptions appear to have functioned in commerce or an administrative context, but without understanding their meaning, the mechanisms of trade control remain speculative. Did merchant guilds oversee transactions? Were temple institutions involved? Or did city councils regulate exchange? The absence of deciphered texts leaves each model plausible, yet unconfirmed. Religious and ritual life also offers rich clues, but no certainties. Terracotta figurines, male priest-king statues, and depictions of horned deities suggest belief systems perhaps involving fertility, water, or proto-Shiva-like figures. Large brick platforms and raised mounds at key sites may have served ceremonial functions, yet their precise roles are unclear. The Great Bath at Mohenjo-daro hints at communal or ritual bathing, but was this linked to ancestor veneration, purity rites, or civic identity? Lack of temples or overt religious architecture leaves us to infer from objects and layout. The script's undeciphered status looms large. Hundreds of brief inscriptions on seals and pottery resist linguistic analysis. Is the underlying language related to Dravidian, lost Munda languages, or a language family now extinct? Without a bilingual inscription or known descendant language, the script's meaning, and thus direct knowledge of Harappan names, titles, myths, or laws, stays beyond reach. Every proposed decipherment faces competing statistical analyses and lack of consensus. Moreover, the circumstances of decline around 1900 BCE are not fully understood. Was there gradual transformation into regional post-urban traditions, or more abrupt collapse triggered by environmental stress? Evidence points to continuity of certain crafts and traditions in successor cultures, hinting at cultural adaptation rather than total societal collapse, but the loss of urban centers and planning sophistication remains striking. Ultimately, the Indus Valley Civilization challenges assumptions about how complex societies organize, communicate, and adapt. Its cities demonstrate advanced engineering and shared cultural norms, yet the absence of deciphered texts and clear markers of political hierarchy keeps its governance and ideology shrouded. What insights lie encoded in their undeciphered seals? And how did communities navigate environmental shifts to shape South Asian history? If this ancient urban enigma captured your imagination, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. In our next episode, we'll voyage to Mesoamerica to explore civilization number 3, the Olmec. Imagine trekking through the humid jungles of Veracruz and Tabasco in Mexico, where beneath dense vegetation lie the ruins of colossal stone heads, each weighing several tons, bearing distinct facial features that suggest powerful rulers or deities. The civilization I'm describing is the Olmec Civilization, often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica. Yet despite extensive studies, many aspects of Olmec society and the reasons behind its dramatic rise and decline remain shrouded in mystery. At the heart of the enigma are the iconic colossal heads, carved from basalt likely quarried tens or even hundreds of kilometers away. Transporting these heads would have required remarkable logistical coordination. Who were these figures? Some scholars propose they depict Olmec rulers, memorialized to assert authority and divine sanction. Yet, no inscriptions accompany the heads to confirm identities or titles. The absence of written records leaves us to infer political organization from settlement patterns and architecture. Major centers like San Lorenzo, La Venta, and Tres Zapates feature monumental platforms, plazas, and drainage systems, hinting at centralized leadership able to mobilize labor on a large scale. Still, how power was distributed, whether under divine kings, priestly councils, or multi-tiered elites, remains uncertain. Evidence for Olmec writing or proto-writing is tantalizing but inconclusive. Some carved symbols on monuments and pottery resemble later Mesoamerican glyphs, raising the possibility of an early script or record-keeping system. Yet no long texts survive, and the patterns cannot be confidently deciphered. Did the Olmec use a full writing system, or only emblematic signs for ritual or lineage identification? The lack of bilingual inscriptions or lengthy texts leaves this question open, limiting our insight into their language and historical narratives. Economic foundations pose further questions. The Olmec exploited fertile river floodplains for maize, squash, and other crops, supported by fishing and hunting in rich wetlands. Trade networks carried jade, obsidian, and greenstone from distant highlands, as well as exotic feathers and marine shells. How did these networks operate? Did the elites control trade, or was exchange more communal? The decline of major Olmec centers around 400 BCE invites speculation. Environmental factors such as river silting, flooding, or volcanic activity may have disrupted agriculture or transportation routes. Social upheaval could have weakened centralized authority. Yet, while some sites were abandoned, elements of Olmec culture persisted and diffused into successor societies, influencing the classic Maya, Zapotecs, and other Mesoamerican cultures. This cultural transmission underscores Olmec importance, but also complicates efforts to isolate uniquely Olmec traits. Ultimately, the Olmec civilization challenges our understanding of early state formation and symbolic expression. Its monumental art and urban planning demonstrate sophisticated organization and artistic vision long before better-known later cultures. Yet the absence of deciphered texts and clear historical records means that much of Olmec life remains beyond reach. These silent stoneheads stand as a testament to a society whose legacy shaped Mesoamerica, but whose inner world still eludes full comprehension. If this ancient enigma fascinated you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. In our next episode, we'll set sail across the Mediterranean to explore civilization number 4, the Minoan Civilization. Imagine stepping into a sprawling palace complex alive with color, frescoed walls depicting diving youths and bulls, winding corridors that suggest ritual processions, and advanced infrastructure like flush toilets, drainage systems, and storerooms brimming with traded goods. The civilization I'm describing is the Minoan Civilization on Bronze Age Crete, one of the Mediterranean's earliest maritime powers. Yet, despite extensive excavations at Knossos, Phaistos, and other centers, many fundamental aspects of Minoan society and the causes of its sudden decline remain cloaked in mystery. At the heart of the enigma lies the palatial complexes themselves. Multi-story buildings with labyrinthine layouts challenge our understanding. Were they residences of powerful rulers, centralized administrative hubs, or ritual centers? The lack of clear defensive walls suggests a society confident in its naval strength or divine protection. Intricate drainage and plumbing point to sophisticated engineering, while storerooms with standardized storage jars imply economic regulation. Yet without deciphered texts, we cannot read inventories or administrative records to confirm how governance operated, nor can we identify specific rulers or institutions. Writing adds another layer to the puzzle. The Minoans used two scripts, the still undeciphered Linear A, appearing on clay tablets and ceilings, and in later periods on Crete, Linear B, used by Mycenaeans to record early Greek. Linear A's language remains unknown, so religious dedications, economic accounts, or mythic narratives inscribed in it elude interpretation. Without knowing what these inscriptions say, we lack direct insight into Minoan religion, laws, and administration. Each new discovery of texts raises hopes, but also deepens uncertainty about their meaning. Economically, the Minoans dominated Aegean trade. Pottery styles, metalwork, and luxury goods circulated across the eastern Mediterranean to Egypt and the Levant. Their ships plied sea routes, exporting Cretan wares and importing raw materials like copper and tin for bronze production. This maritime network underpinned wealth and cultural exchange, evidenced by Minoan-style fresco fragments found abroad. Yet, we do not know who controlled trade and how wealth distribution influenced social hierarchies. The relatively uniform art style suggests shared aesthetic values, but social stratification levels and the role of elites remain debated. The Minoan decline around 1450 BCE adds dramatic intrigue. The volcanic eruption of Thera likely inflicted tsunamis and ash fall, disrupting agriculture and trade. Yet, some palaces continued briefly under Mycenaean influence before the final destruction. Was the collapse driven by natural disaster, foreign invasion, internal revolt, or a combination? Archaeological layers show destruction and rebuilding phases, but disentangling their causes is complex. The ensuing Mycenaean takeover on Crete introduces further questions. How seamlessly did administration shift languages and scripts? What Minoan traditions persisted under new rulers? Ultimately, the Minoan civilization stands as a vivid testament to early complexity in the Mediterranean. Yet, how its rulers governed, how beliefs shaped daily life, and how writing recorded thoughts remain tantalizingly out of reach. These palaces and frescoed walls whisper of a society both brilliant and mysterious, inviting us to marvel at what was achieved and to acknowledge the limits of our knowledge. If this journey into Bronze Age Crete captivated you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. In our next episode, we'll sail west to examine civilization number 5, the Etruscan civilization of ancient Italy. Imagine stepping into a bustling Iron Age city in central Italy around 700 BCE, where ornate tombs line the roads beyond the walls, frescoed with scenes of banquets and ceremonies, and artisans' labor over bronze mirrors engraved with unfamiliar script. The civilization I'm describing is the Etruscan Civilization, a sophisticated pre-Roman society whose language, origins, political structures, and religious beliefs continue to puzzle historians. Although their cities, like Veii, Tarquinia, and Cerveteri, thrived from the 8th to 4th centuries BCE and profoundly influenced early Rome, the Etruscans left behind tantalizing clues rather than clear answers. At the heart of the mystery is their language. Etruscan inscriptions appear on tomb walls, votive offerings, and everyday objects. Yet because Etruscan is a non-Indo-European tongue with no close relatives, we cannot fully interpret its vocabulary or grammar. Short funerary inscriptions reveal names and familial ties, but longer texts remain elusive. Each newly unearthed inscription hints at ritual formulas or titles, but deeper meaning eludes us, keeping the Etruscan worldview partially hidden. Origins and identity add further intrigue. Ancient Greek writers offered conflicting accounts. Some claimed the Etruscans came from Lydia in Anatolia. Others insisted they were indigenous to Italy. Modern genetic and archaeological studies suggest a complex picture. Without a decisive origin story, we cannot fully understand how the Etruscan culture emerged or how they perceived themselves. Religion and ritual offer glimpses of their inner life. Distinctive deities appear in inscriptions and iconography, but mapping Etruscan gods onto Greek or Roman counterparts risks oversimplification. Tomb frescoes depicting feasts and afterlife journeys and richly furnished burial chambers indicate strong beliefs about the afterlife and ancestor worship. Still, due to the absence of written narratives, we reconstruct their religion from funerary art and Roman accounts of rituals, leaving many nuances unseen. Art and architecture reflect both indigenous innovation and external influences. Monumental tombs shaped like houses or tumuli, painted chamber walls, and elaborately carved sarcophagi attest to skilled artisans. Urban layouts with streets and drainage hint at planning. Temples built of wood and mud brick, now lost, are known only from foundation traces and terracotta fragments. The integration of Greek motifs into Etruscan art testifies to vibrant trade networks. Yet how Etruscans adapted and transformed foreign ideas into uniquely local expressions remains a subject of interpretation. The eventual assimilation by Rome complicates the Etruscan legacy. Many Etruscan customs, engineering techniques, and religious practices were adopted by early Romans, but over time, Latin language and Roman institutions absorbed and obscured distinct Etruscan identity. By the late Republic, Etruscan cities were politically integrated into Rome, and the Etruscan language faded from use, consigning much of their history to silence. Archaeological advances continue to shed light on daily life and interregional connections. Yet each discovery raises fresh questions. Without a deciphered corpus or indigenous historical narratives, the Etruscan civilization remains an alluring puzzle. We see their art, architecture, and material culture, but the voices behind them speak faintly through time. If this journey into the Etruscan enigma intrigued you, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. In our next episode, we'll voyage to the Aegean world to explore civilization number 6, the Mycenaean Civilization. Imagine approaching a hilltop citadel in the late Bronze Age Aegean, its massive cyclopean walls rising above terraced slopes, as torchlight flickers on grand palaces where scribes record inventories on clay tablets in a script unknown to most. The civilization I'm describing is the Mycenaean Civilization, a martial, palace-centered society whose ruins dot mainland Greece and whose linear tablets reveal glimpses of administration, yet whose deeper beliefs, political dynamics, and sudden collapse remain shrouded in mystery. At the heart of the enigma lies the palace system itself. Excavations at Mycenae, Pylos, Tiryns, Thebes, and other centers reveal sprawling complexes with central halls, storage magazines, workshops, and archives of clay tablets listing offerings, personnel, and commodities. Linear B, deciphered as an early form of Greek, provides unprecedented insight into palace administration. We know the names of some officials, ration distributions, religious offerings to deities whose names echo later Greek gods, and shipments of oil, wool, and metals. Yet, the surviving tablets are largely bureaucratic. They tell us little about courtly rituals, decision-making processes, or the everyday experiences of artisans and farmers. We lack narrative texts or personal letters that might illuminate ideology, mythic storytelling, or the nuanced relationships between ruler and subjects. The nature of Mycenaean political organization intrigues scholars. Palace archives suggest a hierarchical society under a wanax or king and subsidiary officials, but how rigid was this hierarchy? Did local elites wield autonomy under central authority? How were decisions made during crises? Without written constitutions or explanatory treatises, the mechanisms of control remain speculative. The role of warfare and external relations also raises questions. Mycenaeans built fortified citadels and depicted martial scenes in art. Bronze weapons and chariots appear in tombs and frescoes, but the extent to which they projected power overseas beyond mercantile contacts is debated. Were they imperialistic raiders or diplomatic traders projecting influence through gift exchange? The scant textual references outside Greece complicate our view of their regional standing. Perhaps the greatest mystery is the abrupt collapse around 1100 BCE. Within a generation, palace centers were destroyed or abandoned, linear writing ceased, and Greece entered a dark age, with reduced population and loss of monumental architecture. The causes remain contested. Seismic activity might have damaged palaces. Internal revolts or civil strife could have weakened central authority. Climate change and crop failures may have triggered social unrest. Invasions by external groups or migrations could have disrupted stability, or a combination of factors created a cascading collapse. Each hypothesis finds support in archaeological layers, but no single cause fully accounts for the widespread, near-simultaneous decline across disparate centers. Ultimately, the Mycenaean civilization stands as a vivid, yet partially known chapter in early Greek history. We glimpse administrative sophistication, monumental architecture, and early forms of Greek language, yet the inner workings of power, the lived experiences beyond palace walls, and the precise reasons for collapse elude us. These hilltop ruins and clay tablets invite us to piece together their world, acknowledging both how much we have discovered and how much remains hidden beneath layers of time. If this Bronze Age enigma captured your imagination, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. In our next episode, we'll travel to Mesoamerica to explore civilization number 7, the Maya Civilization. Imagine stepping into a grand plaza ringed by soaring stepped pyramids and elaborately carved temples, where painted stucco facades portray rulers in jaguar pelts presiding over rituals tied to celestial cycles. The civilization I'm describing is the classic Maya civilization in Mesoamerica, a civilization celebrated for its hieroglyphic writing, sophisticated calendar systems, monumental architecture, and rich artistic expression. Yet, despite extensive archaeological and epigraphic work, many core questions about Maya political organization, ideological beliefs, interpolity dynamics, and the causes behind the abrupt collapse of many classic cities remain tantalizingly unresolved. At the heart of the mystery is the sheer scale and complexity of the Maya urban network. Cities such as Tikal, Palenque, Copan, and Calakmul flourished as independent polities, each ruled by dynastic lineages whose names and deeds survive in inscriptions. Yet, the precise mechanisms by which these city-states maintained authority are only partly understood. Maya glyphs record wars, marriages, and ritual events, but gaps in the epigraphic record and damaged monuments leave incomplete narratives. Why did certain dynasties rise or fall, and how did commoner communities experience these political upheavals? The Maya writing system itself is a triumph and a puzzle. Decipherment since the mid-20th century has unlocked many historical texts, including ruler biographies, calendrical prophecies, and dedicatory inscriptions. Yet some glyphic passages remain unreadable or ambiguous, especially when erosion obscures key signs. Moreover, while royal chronicles are well documented, everyday records are scarce, as most texts emphasize elite agendas. What insights into craft specialization, market exchange, or social mobility might have been recorded but remain invisible? The uneven survival of texts across sites means our picture of Maya society is richly detailed in some respects, yet shadowed in others. Religious and cosmological beliefs offer vivid imagery, but not full comprehension. Maya cosmology wove together cycles of celestial bodies, agriculture, and ritual performance. Temple iconography depicts underworld scenes, maze deities, and animal symbols, but the lived experience of these beliefs remains partly speculative. Comparisons with colonial-era Maya documents provide clues, yet the intervening transformations and loss of knowledge in some regions complicate direct inference. The Terminal Classic collapse stands as one of archaeology's most profound puzzles. Between roughly 750 and 900 CE, many southern lowland cities experienced rapid decline. Monumental construction ceased, populations declined or dispersed, and inscriptions abruptly stopped. Hypotheses range from severe droughts undermining agriculture and water management, to environmental degradation from deforestation and soil exhaustion, to intensified warfare disrupting trade and political stability, to systemic social stress fracturing elite legitimacy. Increasingly, scholars emphasize that different regions collapsed unevenly and that some northern centers like Chichen Itza and later, Mayapan, thrived afterward, suggesting complex, multi-causal processes rather than a single catastrophe. Economic organization also poses questions. How did marketplaces function? To what degree did tribute flows sustain palaces? How resilient were rural communities when major centers faltered? Ultimately, the classic Maya civilization stands as a vibrant testament to human creativity in art, astronomy, architecture, and writing. Yet its inner workings and the full story of its transformation remain partly veiled. These jungle-clad ruins and carved monuments invite us to appreciate achievements while acknowledging the limits of our knowledge. If this Mesoamerican enigma captured your imagination, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. In our next episode, we'll journey to southwestern Iran to explore civilization number 8, the Elamite Civilization. Imagine arriving at the ancient city of Susa around 2000 BCE. Its towering mud-brick walls enclosing temples where priests speak in a language unlike any of their Mesopotamian neighbors, and craftsmen fashion distinctive pottery and cylinder seals bearing enigmatic motifs. The civilization I'm describing is the Elamite Civilization of southwestern Iran, a culture that flourished alongside, and often in rivalry with Sumerian, Akkadian, and later Babylonian and Assyrian states. Yet despite millennia of interactions recorded in Mesopotamian chronicles, the inner workings of Elamite society, such as its language, political organization, religious beliefs, and cultural continuity, remain tantalizingly obscure. At the core of the mystery lies the Elamite language and script. While Akkadian texts mention Elam and Elamite rulers, and certain Elamite words survive in bilingual inscriptions, much of the native Elamite record uses scripts, such as linear Elamite, that resist full decipherment. Although a later Elamite cuneiform writing system yields administrative texts, often in Akkadian or bilingual form, the early Bronze Age inscriptions in linear Elamite remain largely unreadable. Without a complete understanding of indigenous texts, we lack direct access to Elamite laws, myths, or royal proclamations. Our picture depends heavily on external sources and fragmentary native records. Politically, Elam was never a single monolithic empire, but a shifting tapestry of city-states and dynasties. How did these centers balance cooperation and competition? Mesopotamian chronicles describe Elamite incursions into Sumer and alliances with Babylonian kings. Yet details of internal governance are inferred from scant inscriptions and archaeological remains rather than clear indigenous narratives. Elamite religion and iconography offer vivid clues, yet leave many questions. Archaeological excavations reveal temples dedicated to deities like in Shushanak at Susa, with distinctive statuary and ritual objects. Cylinder seals depict hybrid creatures and mythic scenes, potentially reflecting local cosmologies. However, without readable mythic texts, the symbolic meanings and ritual practices remain open to interpretation. How did Elamite beliefs influence, or get influenced by Mesopotamian pantheons? What rites accompanied royal enthronements or festivals? Economically, Elamites likely exploited fertile river plains fed by the Karka and Des rivers, practicing irrigation agriculture of grains and date cultivation, while also engaging in trade of metals, notably copper and later silver, and luxury goods. Susa's strategic position fostered exchange between the Iranian plateau and Mesopotamia. Yet, the mechanisms of resource control are debated due to limited administrative records in Elamite. The decline and legacy of Elam add further intrigue. Conquests by Assyrian and later Persian empires absorbed Elamite territories. Yet Elamite elites sometimes persisted within new regimes, influencing Achaemenid administration. Over time, the Elamite language faded as Old Persian and Aramaic became dominant, and archaeological layers of later empires overlay earlier remains. Traces of Elamite culture survive in place names and possibly in imported mythic themes, but the degree of cultural continuity versus assimilation remains debated. Without continuous native textual traditions, understanding how Elamites perceived these transitions is challenging. Modern archaeology and interdisciplinary research continue to illuminate Elamite society. Yet, each discovery often raises fresh puzzles. For example, a newly excavated temple foundation may hint at ceremonial practices we cannot fully reconstruct. Ultimately, the Elamite civilization endures as a frontier of ancient studies, reminding us how much of humanity's early complexity lies hidden when indigenous records remain partially unreadable. If this enigmatic civilization captured your imagination, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. In our next episode, we'll journey to Nubia to explore civilization number 9, the Kingdom of Kush and the Meroitic Civilization. Imagine a wealthy kingdom rising along Africa's Nile corridor, where Nubian rulers once donned Egyptian-style regalia, built pyramids in sun-baked cemeteries, and later developed their own script on temple walls, yet left behind more questions than answers. The kingdom I'm describing is the Kingdom of Kush and its later Meroitic phase, a civilization centered in Nubia, modern Sudan, that both adopted and transformed Egyptian traditions, yet maintained distinct institutions whose inner workings remain only partly understood. At the heart of the enigma lies the transition from Napata to Meroe. After Kushite kings ruled Egypt as its 25th dynasty, shifting political pressures and environmental factors prompted a southward move of the capital to Meroe by around 300 BCE. There, a vibrant culture flourished for centuries, marked by prolific iron production, extensive trade networks reaching the Red Sea and beyond, and the construction of hundreds of pyramids at sites like Meroe and Nuri. Yet many key aspects of Kushite society, such as how power was structured, how the economy truly operated, and how religious beliefs evolved, remain elusive due to limited indigenous records and partially deciphered writing. Language and script present a prime mystery. The Meroitic script, developed around the 3rd century BCE, survives on stelae, ostraca, and inscriptions, but despite knowing its alphabetic signs, scholars have not fully understood the Meroitic language, which appears unrelated to known families. Without a clear bilingual inscription akin to a Rosetta Stone, we cannot read royal decrees, legal codes, or mythic texts. Thus, the content of many inscriptions remains opaque, limiting direct insight into Meroitic ideology and governance. Political organization also invites questions. Kushite rulers employed titles echoing Egyptian pharaohs, yet they adapted religious emphasis toward native Nubian deities, such as a Piedmak, a lion-headed war god prominent in Meroe. Royal succession seems to have involved powerful queens or candaces, ruling in their own right or as regents, suggesting potential matrilineal or matrifical elements. But the precise mechanisms in selecting and supporting rulers remain unclear. Economically, Meroe's reputation for ironworking hints at a robust metallurgical industry supplying tools, weapons, and trade goods. Furnaces and slag deposits attest to large-scale production, but the organization of mining, smelting, and distribution networks is not fully reconstructed. Kush engaged in the trade of gold, ivory, ebony, and exotic animals northward to Egypt and Mediterranean markets, and eastward toward the Red Sea. How merchants coordinated long-distance caravans through desert and Nile cataracts, and how state authorities regulated or taxed such commerce, remain debated. The decline of Meroe around the mid-4th century CE poses further questions. Factors may include environmental change, disruption of Red Sea trade routes, internal political fragmentation, or pressure from emerging powers such as Aksum to the southeast. But exactly how these forces combined to collapse a centuries-old kingdom is contested. Ultimately, the kingdom of Kush and Meroitic civilization stand as powerful reminders of a complex African state that interacted dynamically with Egypt and the Mediterranean world while forging distinctive institutions. Their monumental pyramids, ironworks, and art testify to organizational prowess and cultural creativity, yet the faded voices and undeciphered inscriptions leave much of their story untold. If this Nubian enigma captured your imagination, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. In our next episode, we'll cross the Mediterranean to explore civilization number 10, the Nuragic Civilization of Sardinia. Imagine standing on a windswept hilltop in Bronze Age Sardinia, surrounded by the silhouette of conical stone towers or nuraghi, rising from the landscape in clustered villages, their thick walls built without mortar yet enduring millennia of weather. The civilization I'm describing is the Nuragic Civilization, a society defined by thousands of these enigmatic structures, yet lacking any surviving written records. Despite extensive archaeological surveys, many core questions about the Nuragic civilization remain unresolved. At the heart of the mystery lies the nuraghi themselves. Over 7,000 of these towers dot Sardinia's countryside, some simple single towers, others complex multi-level edifices with corridors, chambers, and bastions. How and why did Bronze Age Sardinians build so many? The amount of labor required to quarry and transport massive stones, then fit them precisely into stable conical shapes, implies coordinated effort under some form of leadership or shared communal imperative. Yet without inscriptions or contemporary chronicles, we cannot identify whether nuraghi served primarily defensive, residential, ceremonial, or symbolic functions, or a combination thereof. Were they fortresses protecting communities, status symbols of competing lineages, communal gathering places for rituals, or watchtowers controlling trade routes? The diverse forms and strategic locations suggest varied roles, but the precise decision-making processes and social structures behind their erection remain unclear. Social hierarchy and political organization also elude us. Grave goods from chamber tombs and small-scale settlements indicate differentiation in wealth or status, yet the scale of inequality is hard to gauge. Did Sardinia consist of loosely affiliated chiefdoms centered around nuraghi, each led by a hereditary leader, or was there a more fluid, egalitarian network of kin-based communities cooperating in shared endeavors? Archaeological evidence of shifting settlement patterns hints at changing social dynamics, perhaps in response to external trade opportunities or internal demographic pressures. But the absence of texts means we infer governance models from material remains alone. Economically, Sardinia's rich metal deposits, notably copper and silver, likely fueled trade with Mediterranean neighbors such as Mycenaeans, Phoenicians, and later Carthaginians. Yet, how trade was organized, whether controlled by local elites or managed communally, remains debated. The economic impact of external contacts on social stratification and cultural change is also a topic of ongoing research. Religious beliefs and ritual practices are glimpsed through sacred wells, megalithic sanctuaries, and votive deposits found near nuraghi or in remote mountain sites. Circular wells with carefully cut steps suggest water cults. Statuettes of warriors or animals may relate to ancestor veneration or protective deities. But without written myths or liturgies, the symbolic meanings and theological frameworks are reconstructed speculatively from artifact assemblages and architectural contexts. Did certain nuraghi serve as ritual centers where communities gathered for seasonal ceremonies? How did beliefs evolve under Mediterranean influences, such as contact with Phoenician or Greek settlers? These questions persist because the material record can be read in multiple ways. The The decline or transformation of the Nuragic Civilization around the first millennium BCE also raises puzzles. How did Nuragic communities adapt to or resist foreign rule? To what extent did earlier social structures persist beneath new political systems? Finding answers to these questions requires careful stratigraphic work and analysis of artifact transitions. But without written testimony, new findings will likely invite multiple interpretations, and the true voice of the Nuragic people remains largely silent. Ultimately, the Nuragic civilization stands as a testament to human ingenuity in stone construction, community organization, and adaptation to an island environment, while reminding us how much of a society's inner life can be lost when no written record survives. These silent towers and scattered settlements beckon us to piece together their story from stones and soils, celebrating both what we discover and the enduring mysteries that inspire further exploration. If this Sardinian enigma captured your imagination, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Thanks for joining this journey through 10 of the most mysterious ancient civilizations. Stay tuned for more explorations into history's greatest enigmas.